Welcome to Diversity Conversations, where we engage in thought-provoking dialogue to identify leadership solutions to today's most challenging conflicts. Streamed live each week, Saturday 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Hosted by Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategist and CEOs Eric Ellis and Tommy Lewis. Join us and add your voice to this engaging diversity conversation.
Good morning, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, the United States, and the world. I am Tommy Lewis, President and CEO of Make It Plain Consulting, and I'm joined by, you know what? I am not joined today by my good friend and brother, Eric Ellis. Eric and his family are taking some time away, as he mentioned last week, with our beloved wives, Judy and Penny, respectfully, that Eric sometimes just follows Judy's lead. And so he has done that this weekend, followed her lead, and they're taking some well-deserved and well-needed time away. But I'm with you all today, and I hope that you all stay with me for our diversity conversation segment on this beautiful pre-Mother's Day weekend. In fact, happy Mother's Day to our beloved Lydia, producer and extraordinaire. Happy Mother's Day. To my own wife, Penny and Judy, happy Mother's Day. And to my sister and other mothers across the world, happy Mother's Day. Now, we do know that Mother's Day is not necessarily celebrated. It doesn't have a specific day in some cultures, some parts of the world. But we do value, appreciate, and see the mothers. That's a phenomenal experience to be a mother. Now, I'm a father, and I know that my role is important in the raising and rearing of our young people into adulthood and continued throughout adulthood. But our mothers are our first teachers. They are the ones that every human being is coming through one way or another. Literally, our mothers are teaching us about life, about living, if you will, before we even come into the world. Some of us take on whatever our mothers are eating or the energy that they're feeling or going through while they're pregnant with us. And so we're learning, and we continue to learn early on with our mothers. We can actually, as human beings, when we're born into the world, when we have the sense or the ability of smell, right? Some of us do, some of us don't as much. But if we do have that sense of smell, we can smell our mothers. We can sense them. And we're born into this world, regardless of our ability, with a purpose. So I want to say thank you to our mothers who continue to pour into the seeds that they've birthed into this world and allowing that seed to grow and flourish into the flowers, trees, and forests that they become. And I say forest because some of our mothers, we don't have just one child. Some of us have multiple children. And in fact, my own mother, may she rest in peace, Carol Lewis, she had three, and I'm the youngest of the three. And although there was only three of us, we had Diane, the oldest, Anita in the middle, and then Tommy Lewis Jr., TJ, at the end. Now, I'm the only boy. And I can tell you there were countless times just with three children that my mother forgot my name. She would call me, Diane, come here. Anita, come here. Mom, I'm not a girl. I'm not my sisters. Just come here and take out the trash. And so if it's one child, maybe we can remember their name. But if there's multiple children, good luck. But I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all the mothers. As I mentioned before, Eric is away, and we typically have these conversations with the both of us and with you. So I would like to invite you to continue to have this conversation with us. I need you this morning. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One, starting with my week. I had a very educational week this week. We're working with a client in the state of Ohio and they work specifically with individuals, families, and communities of folks who have developmental disabilities. Some of these developmental disabilities are minor, very slight. Some of them are severe, where the person or even the people, they're unable to speak. They're absolutely immobile. They have some, again, developmental disabilities. So from a cognitive or thinking perspective, there are some challenges and or opportunities. What I've learned this week with working with said organization, the Ohio Developmental Disabilities Council, is three things. One, I personally appreciate working with the organization and acknowledge where I continue to learn. I am what one may call able-bodied. There are some things that I can do that would not be characterized as disabled. So as I'm engaging with some of our individuals, our professionals, friends and family members who have such disability, developmental disabilities, I've learned to be patient, not only with myself and my own learning curve, but also be patient with the people. Again, I'm working with people, not machines, not widgets, but people. And that's how I see them. Anyone I'm working with, I see them as people, human beings. And human beings are human beings, but we have different lived experiences. We have different needs, desires, wants, aspirations. All of that can be different, regardless if you have a family of 3 siblings, 10 siblings, 1, or you're just trying to make your way through this world of billions of people. Number 2, what I've also learned is a concept and or practice of plain language. Plain language. This was introduced to me as I was preparing an email to share with a large group of individuals within the council. And I was sharing it with our contact with the council, and they responded with, there's some language that may not be as simple or plain. Here's a guide called Plain Language. And I received it like, okay, my company is called Make It Plain Consulting. They're sharing with me a guide to make language plain. And the guide was phenomenal. We don't need to always over speak or make things complicated, make them worse, make them difficult. We don't always have to do that. Sometimes we can just make it plain. And as I was revisiting the original email that I was going to send out to this large group, using the guide, I was able to really take some of that more complex language, academic language, all that stuff, and just make it real plain. Just say what I wanted to say. And sometimes we don't have to have words that have 5 or 6 syllables. All right, some of us, myself included, I want to sound intelligent, sound smart. All right, so I'm going to add a syllable there, add a syllable. And so we have one word is all these syllables and it's very long. And we could have just said, can I help you? H-E-L-P, help. Instead of all that other stuff. And so as I took a look at my email and shrunk it down into plain language, it made sense to me. And so I sent the email out, and there were a few asks that we were, prompting folks to respond to take a couple of surveys. And one of the surveys, we revisited the language, we tweaked it and made the language plain and made the survey brief. The other survey is it's an assessment that we didn't create. We didn't create the assessment at all. It was actually created several decades ago. And we learned that the language is not that simple and plain at all. So what I had to do, and my team, what we had to do is we had to invite those with particular developmental disabilities who were unable to really comprehend some of the complex language in the assessment. We just simply asked them to give us a call. And we could walk through each statement and question in the assessment, provide them the options that they have to answer said statement and questions, and really complete the assessment. Now, instead of the assessment taking typically 15, no more than 25 minutes, the conversations to walk through the assessment took about an hour and a half, 90 minutes. Again, what I've learned is oftentimes, and I'm gonna say this flat out, all the time, meet people where they are rather than expecting people to meet you where you are. So if you're really trying to be inclusive, engaging, equitable, maybe generate some diversity of thought, just pivot the room so that the focus is on the other person. Now, every now and again, we need to focus on ourselves, self-reflection, take a vacation, time away. Thank you, Eric. But I would like to say lean in and focus on the other person. That's what I learned from Judy and Penny last episode. That's why I continue to learn from Eric all the time. He pours into other people all the time. He pours into me unexpectedly. And I love it. Sometimes I get into the phase of, do I really deserve the love? Do I deserve the just blatant and blind friendship? The short answer is yes, because I want to do the same for others. And so as I'm learning this past week from this work with the Ohio Developmental Disabilities Council, I would like to invite any of you to look at your respective states, if you're in the US, your respective countries. If there's an organization that cares for the marginalized populations, the underrepresented populations, the populations that are there, present, but maybe not seen or heard as regularly as your own common population, reach out to these organizations, tap into them, see if there's anything that you might be able to do to assist, scratch that, to help. Right? But plain and simple. How can I help? That's the key word and challenge for next week. How can I help? Question mark. Receive that response and do as they need you to do. Now, sometimes people can respond and share with you what they need you to do, and you may or may not have that ability. That's where the learning is. If you can do it, you'll do it. But if you can't do it, learn to do it. I love this work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, accessibility, belonging, justice. As I was looking at some items to talk about today, again, I'm going to invite you all to share your thoughts and your input very much. As I was looking at a few things, there were 10 top diversity, equity, and inclusion podcast topics that are floating around the world. I'm going to go through the list very quickly, and then we're going to land on maybe 2, 3 of them. Unpacking privilege. That's a hot topic, a DE&I topic, unpacking privilege. As I mentioned before, in so many words, I have the privilege of being, quote unquote, able-bodied, to be able to move around fairly freely with my own body. Some others are, they have wheelchairs, they're immobile, they simply don't have the accessibility of mobility that I have. That's a privilege. I'll tell you, when I really acknowledge my privilege of mobility is when I don't have that mobility. I recognize my privilege of health when I'm unhealthy. Right? That's backwards. It really is. That's backwards. I should really appreciate my privilege when I'm in it. And appreciating my privilege is to say thank you for my ability to do it. Not diminishing or really talking down on anyone that can't, but I'm very thankful for my health. I'm very thankful for my deteriorating eyesight, but I can still see. My voice that I use every single day, that only a few times in my life have I lost that voice. I think, speaking for myself, you all can speak for yourself. Sometimes we don't appreciate things until they're lost. Love, we don't maybe appreciate it as much until it's lost. Our loved ones and or children, our children grow up in front of us. We love them dearly. They're getting older. That seed is growing into those flowers and trees and moving on. And then they move out of the house and we become empty nesters and we realize, man, I miss them. For the 18, 20, 25, 30 years that they've been living with me, now that they're on their own, which was all part of the plan, now they're gone. Unpacking privilege, discussing various forms of privilege and how they impact individuals and society. Something to think about. Intersectionality, that's another DEI topic. It's really exploring the interconnected nature of social identities, such as race, gender, sexuality, and ability, as well as some structural things, such as your career, your work, what identifies you. That intersectionality, how it connects, it's all interwoven. We are not just one thing. We're not just a mother, we're not just a father, we're not just a sibling, we're not just a coworker or a colleague. We're all of these things. And how do we examine that intersectionality? I'll go through this very quickly and we're going to land on two to have a conversation. Again, microaggressions, allyship, diversity in the workplace is a hot topic. Implicit bias, inclusive language, cultural competence, equity in education, social justice. I wanted to spend some time today to talk about two things. I started with the first one that I wanted to talk about, which is inclusive language. As I mentioned before, I was using the plain language guide to be inclusive of the people I'm talking to. And I'm always amazed myself because of my great opportunity and blessing to be able to travel the world. I'm always amazed at bilingual, trilingual, and multilingual people. Our producer, Lydia, she speaks English very well. She speaks Spanish very well. I don't know how many languages she speaks, but I know one thing, I'm always amazed because I have been to places where people were having conversations in a language that I completely couldn't understand. So I'm sitting there in this, maybe I'm part of the conversation, or I'm on the outside of the conversation, and I'm sitting there listening people communicate with one another. And then they start laughing, and I start laughing. Oh boy, I don't know what we're laughing about at all because I don't understand you at all, but I'm going to laugh with you. And then they start laughing. Oh, I think it's time for me to stop laughing. I don't know what they're saying right now because I don't speak the language. They start laughing again. I'm back to laughing. I want to be included in the conversation. And so I think to have inclusive language is to, one, be intentional. If I want to be included in a conversation where people are talking in a language that I don't understand, it is my responsibility to learn that language. It's not their responsibility at all. Oh, I'm sorry, Tommy, you don't speak Spanish or French or German or Portuguese or Italian. You don't speak the language. That's the language that we're speaking right now. So let me speak English. Everyone doesn't speak English at all. I've been to countries that they don't. And so I am very interested and curious about learning other languages. very excited to engage with folks who speak multiple languages. Inclusive language, discussing the importance of using inclusive and respectful language in everyday communication. So it's not just the language itself. Sometimes it's the content. It's making reference. Right? I'll give you an example. Last evening, Penny and I had some friends over to the house. A great evening. We had a lot of little bite-sized samples of things from cheese and crackers and fruit, some finger food, a couple of wings and things like that. Just things that you don't necessarily need to get too full off of one thing, but you can sample. So the food was phenomenal. The conversation was even better. And as we ebbed and flowed between topics, there were some topics that I was less familiar with. There were other topics that I saw that Penny was less familiar with. And then we just bounced around. There were times that one person dominated the conversation. Everyone else was listening. Others, we were kind of in the rugby or scrum communication style where we're talking over one another. All of it was good, but it was all inclusive. That at any time throughout the evening, someone was given the floor, the privilege to speak, the honor of speaking. We want to know what you think, right? And again, I will tell you that I truly, truly appreciate and love my friends because we laugh so much. Don't you have friends like that? Don't you have family like that? There's enough pain and hurt in the world. I would recommend if you have friends and family that you can surround yourself with, bring into close proximity to you when you need that booster shot of joy, of laughter. I am talking about belly aching, bending over, tears in your eyes, laughter. And the person that you're talking to, the people that you're talking to, who's sharing the funny story, the joke, when they know they've got you, it's like that comedian. Once they know they've got you in that humor bug, it's bitten you, and then they double down, they triple down. Another joke, another funny story, another joke, and you just can't stop laughing. We love it. I love it. I really, really do. And I love it because a couple of reasons. One, um, if you all haven't learned already that Eric and I, we have different personalities, but we're working toward the same goal, same objective, humanity. And in my journey toward really getting humanity to wrap itself around love, in that pursuit, I'm very serious about it. It's kind of an oxymoron. I want humanity to have joy, but I'm serious about that joy. So every day, I'm working, I'm learning from people, I'm studying, and not only studying from learned people who've studied and written books and all that good stuff, not just that, but just everyday people. I'm a people watcher. And so as I learn more and study more, sometimes I can get a little too serious. I know, I admit it. And so what I do is, again, surround myself with those laughter, happiness, and those people that can really take me to a place of relax and enjoy. Do you have those people in your life to relax and enjoy? To be inclusive in the language, that they understand your language, your spoken language, your nonverbal language, your love language. Something to think about. As I'm talking to you right now, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, I just need to, I don't know. I was going to say don't take life too seriously. And I don't really, I don't take life too seriously. I find a lot of joy in it, but I miss laughing in the moments where things can get tense. I'm not talking about awkward laughter or inappropriate laughter. I'm talking about whatever the situation is, my faith tells me that this too shall pass. I know this by my faith, but in the moment of the conflict, the tension, the anxiety, I lose sight on this too shall pass. If I were to keep sight on that, sometimes I would just laugh like, this too shall pass. Everything's going to be all right one way or another. That's something that we should tap into. We got some community folks chiming in. Herschel, thank you for joining us, and others that are joining, listening. Herschel says, are you all going to Strong Towns National Gathering in Cincinnati this week? Strong Towns National Gathering. I'm less familiar with it. I don't know about Strong Towns. Continue to share more in the chat for us. And those who are not in Cincinnati, if you're in your respective cities, type in what's happening this weekend, what cultural events that we can have the community come out and share. This is inclusiveness. Don't keep great ideas, great opportunities, expanding opportunities to yourself. Don't keep it to yourself. Share the good news, right? Share the good news. Inclusive language. And so in this inclusive language journey that I've been having this week and previous weeks and months and years, I think that there's an opportunity for us to increase our cultural competence. Cultural competence. So before I kind of dive into this piece, I want to kind of bring up Herschel's comment again. Lydia, he was saying that the BIP OCA, Black folks and indigenous people with people of color, and allied white folk. That's where we come together, these different folks. We have all these labels and titles for people. At the end of the day, human beings from different walks of life, backgrounds, etc., are coming together to learn and work and kind of live with one another. We got folks that may be kind of less comfortable with crowds. That's okay. Sometimes we can come to a large event and be on the side. I'm one of them. I'm one of them. I'm an introvert. Right? I spend every single day at work giving myself and my energy to other people. It takes a lot out of me at the end of the day. I'm thinking, I'm sharing, I'm learning from other folks. And so when I get in a large crowd, I can just disappear. I'm blessed to know a few people, right? A number of people know me, and I do a lot of training. So there are more people who know of me and maybe my name than I know them. And so my name is screamed out all the time. And I recognize that. But at the same time, if I'm there to learn or I'm there to watch a concert, listen to some music, all that good stuff, I can disappear in my own head. So we invite folks to engage in the way that they want to be engaged, to be culturally competent of not only themselves, but other people. Cultural competence. Exploring ways to enhance cultural awareness and sensitivity towards diverse populations. In a moment, we're going to bring up a slide, not now, but just in a moment, we're going to bring up a slide for those who are watching this, for those who are listening. I'm going to just talk through what you would otherwise see if you are visually able, right? So we always have to be sensitive to our abilities or disabilities. Cultural competence is the ability to understand, value in some cases, and maybe shift your perspective, your mindset, and your behavior. This is an ability, not just awareness, but also action. So you engage with a difference and a commonality, and you understand that difference or commonality, and you can shift your mindset and change behavior. There's an instrument that was created many moons ago. It's called the Intercultural Development Inventory, the IDI. And the IDI is a psychometric assessment, meaning it uses psychology. It's highly validated with hundreds of thousands of people around the world taking a look at each question, each assessment statement, and validating if it is without bias, meaning that that question can be answered by anyone around the world without really having a bias, a lean to one side or other to say, well, only folks in France can answer this, only folks in Japan can answer this, or Canada. It's not set up that way. It's set up such that it asks a series of questions. Sometimes it asks questions and or statements in multiple times, but it's the same question. So they ask it multiple times, 2 or 3 times in different ways, but it's the same question. There are also times that these statements have double negatives. It's confusing. So that it asks a statement or shares a statement, and then there's a little, do you not agree with X? What? Do you not agree? That's confusing. So you have to really pay attention. And because it's not a poll or a survey or a test, you can't pass or fail it. It's nothing that you will get you get a score, yes, but you don't get a grade. It's not, I get an A, I am interculturally competent, or I get an F, I don't know anything about anyone, and I don't even know anything about myself. That's not what it is. The intercultural competence measures one's ability to understand themselves, understand others, shift mindset, and change behavior. We conduct the IDI almost every 2 or 3 days each week, and we deploy it to individuals. You can use this as a group, and we share these debriefs. So let me walk through what the results are, these orientations. We're going to bring up the slide of the IDI graphic, if you will. And so the IDI has an intercultural development continuum. And this continuum goes from the monocultural mindset to the intercultural mindset. And I'm sharing this because as I do the debriefs with individuals and groups, I often learn that 2 things. One, this instrument can easily be implemented personally. You can use it personally, making sense of cultural difference and commonalities. You can use it almost immediately if you're intentional. 2, you can use it at work or in society. It begins to allow us to make sense of what's happening. We move from monocultural mindset all the way to the intercultural mindset. We start with denial. Denial is where we engage with a difference, whatever that difference is, difference of attitude, difference of opinion, difference of ideas, as well as those differences of human characteristics, those things that we can see that are humanly different, and those things that we can't see, like one's conflict resolution preference or one's sense of self. We can't always see that in another person. In denial, when we engage with that difference, we miss it. We don't see the difference at all. We miss it. It's a blind spot. We haven't paid attention to it, or we simply avoid or withdraw from that difference. That's denial. Polarization. Polarization is when we engage with that difference or commonality and we judge it. We judge the difference. We view that difference in terms of us and them, or right or wrong. And so there's two sides of polarization. One is defense. Defense is when we engage with the difference and we are overly critical of the other person or people. And we don't kind of critique ourselves. That's defense. So someone engages with us, it's different, and we judge it, right? We judge it. That's right or that's wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. You know what? As a group, it's us versus them. And they say something and we get defensive, right? We try to prove our point. We try to sometimes get them to pivot and change their mindset, their belief, their value. That's defense. The other side of polarization is reversal. Reversal is when we are overly critical of our own values, our own experiences, our own backgrounds, our own views of the world. We're overly critical of that, and we're uncritical of the other. So it may look like this: when a person is with an organization or in a relationship and it's not going well, they don't like it, they don't like the processes, they don't like the people, they don't like the person. If it is a relationship, they just don't like it. It rubs them the wrong way. And then they join another organization or they're in another relationship and everything is great. This is the way a relationship should be. This is the way love acts or is. This is the way a process should be, such that it is effective, etc. This is the way. It's still polarization. It's judging right or wrong, us or them. In the case that I just said, that's reversal. It said, everything I've learned right now, even about myself, I don't like it. The grass is greener on the other side. In reality, it's all grass. It's all grass. In reality, it's all life. Everything that you go through, it's life. Some people experience the same things you have. Some people experience less or more. It's all life. Polarization is when we engage with the difference and we judge it. Minimization. Minimization is when we engage with the difference and we de-emphasize the difference. We just focus on what we have in common. It sounds like this. Aren't we all human beings? Don't we all work for the same organization, or aren't we all part of the same family? Aren't we all working toward the same mission or vision or desired outcomes? Don't we want the same things? We're all human beings. Those statements may be absolutely true. However, as human beings, we have different lived experiences, different needs, different wants and desires. And so in minimization, we don't really focus on what is different. We focus on what we have in common. And we can see this out in the world when folks say, in America, this is what the American people say. Just focus on the commonality. So if you don't think that you're part of the American people, then you're not. But we're going to minimize it to just say, we're just American people, not those quote unquote other people, right? Or we just want to focus on basically what I am comfortable with. Minimization, that's what I want to focus on. Remember that none of this is right or wrong at all. It is a preferred orientation of how we engage with difference and commonality. Acceptance. Acceptance is when we engage with that difference and we have a deep comprehension. We deeply understand the difference. So we interact with that difference. We don't necessarily understand it. However, I don't really understand. I don't even agree with the difference. It's a different idea, different mindset, kind of different lifestyle. I don't even agree with it, but I accept that it's different. period. Acceptance is accepting the difference, owning your own views, beliefs, but leaning in to understand the other. So it's not a matter of let's just agree to disagree. Right? That's not it. It's really, I don't understand it. I don't agree. Okay, let's help me understand. That's acceptance. Adaptation. According to the IDI Institute, the Intercultural Development Inventory Institute, over the last 6 to 7 decades, millions of people across the world taking this assessment. It is interpreted in more than 80 languages. It's phenomenal. Their data says that out of the millions of people who have taken the IDI, less than 5% are in adaptation. What is adaptation? Adaptation is when we interact with a difference, we can almost instantaneously shift our perspective, shift our mind, and change behavior in a culturally appropriate and authentic way. So culturally appropriate is that we're shifting in a way that's culturally appropriate. It's not, it's in a way that the culture can accept it. Not that we're trying to say, well, I'm an American and I speak English, and then I take a vacation in Mexico and I say, all of these people should speak English. That's inappropriate, right? Adaptation is like walking the talk. Exactly. It's walking the talk. And so you can, and that's doing it instantaneously in the moment. Now, it is also in an authentic way, meaning it's not fake. You're not just trying to change this behavior to make someone feel better or to get your way. It's something that you change and you can do it consistently. I'll give you an example. In America, at one time, automobiles did not have car seats, right? Seat belts. I'm sorry, seat belts. We call them safety belts or seat belts. Yeah, there was a time that, we had cars, we had vans and all that good stuff, and people just bounced around, right? Just hit a bad bump, you just go bouncing around, hold on. It was like the rodeo. And then, because of safety issues, the industry, the automobile industry, and government said, we want to keep people more safe. So every vehicle has to have a safety belt, seat belts. Now, that's a new policy, a new law. Some people were not in adaptation. They understood the law, right? They even understood why to keep people safe, but they didn't change behavior. They didn't start wearing their seatbelt, or they would periodically wear their seatbelt. When you're in adaptation, oh, I'm sorry, I don't wear my seatbelt today, but there's a new law today. Let me understand the law. Got it. Tomorrow, I will wear my seatbelt, and going forward, I will sustain it. It is culturally appropriate and it's authentic. That's adaptation. And so now I would like to ask you, in any given situation, at home, at work, in your personal life, typically, where are you from an intercultural competence perspective when you engage with people who are different or people who are similar to you? Where's your preference? Are you in minimization? Do you like to first kind of set the foundation? What do we have in common before we move into what are our differences? Again, there's not a right or wrong about any of this. Are you in polarization, where the difference is so big that you simply don't understand it? and it's so different from you that you judge it. I was listening to another podcast earlier this morning, and the two women on the podcast, they were talking about how other women wear bonnets, these hair bonnets, hair coverings out in public. And originally, a bonnet was to wear in the evening to preserve the moisture for one's hair. And keeping that moisture, then you keep body in your hair and not allowing the hair to dry out. But it said, we don't like people that wear bonnets. The other one says, I don't have a problem with it. They were judging other people and what they wear. One person was in defense and the other person was in reversal. Some of us, naturally, from a human perspective, we have a tendency to judge, right? Because some of it is just defense or reversal. We have to say, hey, that's something I don't like. I'm going to judge it. I know it. Sometimes I hear a new idea and say, whoa, reversal. My idea was a bad idea. Your idea is better. Just immediately, just shift polarization. Your idea is better. Now we can ebb and flow throughout this kind of continuum, right? Continuum. So we'll pull down this particular slide. Wanted to kind of walk through cultural competence. Cultural competence. It is a skill. It's an ability. There is some awareness, but ultimately, to increase one's cultural competence, I think there are coupled to maybe three things. One, first, proximity. Proximity, to be closer to the difference. I enjoy going to Mexico. Why? Because it's close to the US and people are different. Just like going from Ohio to California, people are different. Still in the same country, people are different. I like going to Italy, Europe, South America. Everything's different, not just the people, the architecture, the culture, the style, the food, the music. I love the richness and diversity of food and music and culture. I love all that. And I don't want to enjoy food by watching YouTube. It's difficult for me. I don't know about for you, right? No, I'm not going to judge you. But for me, to experience food, clothing, music authentically, I have to taste it. I have to wear it. I have to hear it. And sometimes that's better by being right close and next to the originator, the artist, the chef, the mom or the dad, being right there. Oh, I love it. The other way to increase cultural competence is to become well informed. And what does that mean? So there's a lot of misinformation out there about culture, about diversity, equity, inclusion, about accessibility, about belonging, about anyone. There's a lot of lies about everything. I'm saying to tap into the source, tap into real information. And sometimes that information is through research and publications over time, not just one person saying one thing about everything, but multiple people researching and studying and then producing information that we can read, be it publication, a book, documentary, video, all that stuff. That's how we become aware, culturally competent through awareness. Now, sometimes that awareness can be challenged when we judge the truth, right? Now, we got to be careful here. We're receiving the truth. So if we're talking to a person or talking to a group of people and they're telling us about their lived experience, I would caution us not to judge their lived experience. Now, you may ask them about their lived experience another time and another 3 times, another 10 times. And if that story continues to change, I have some doubt now. Might not be true because the story is changing about the same event. Interesting. But if the story is the same, not only with that person, but multiple other people are telling the exact same story about the same event, there's something that might be true about it. Now you're more aware. So we have proximity, awareness, and the last piece around cultural competence, I believe, is self-reflection. Self-reflection. And that's how we started our show today with myself, as I was self-reflecting on my engagement with the Developmental Disabilities Council. I was learning so much of how sometimes I use words that make sense. I know that my speech pattern can be fast at times and slow other times. I don't always finish sentences and or words. I know all of that. I am a work in progress. And I admit that. And then I have certain people, loved ones in my life, like my wife, who lets me know, gives me some constructive feedback. Hey, you never finished that thought. I'm like, yeah, I finished that thought. She says, no, you did not. In my head, I was done with it. I just moved on to another thought, another sentence. In mid-sentence, right? Mid-thought. We do that. But what I'm trying to do is move closer into adaptation, to engage with feedback that's different, another person that's different, anything that's different, whatever I am uncomfortable with, become more comfortable with it. I don't always agree with it, and I'm saying you don't either. You don't always have to agree with it. You don't always have to understand it. But can you? Do you have the ability to shift your perspective and possibly change your behavior? That's the self-reflection that I look at. You can answer yourself saying, nope, there's some things I can't change behavior. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. Hold on. Hold on. I appreciate that comment. I do. But my follow-up question to you is, are you a dog? No, Tommy, it's just a saying, can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm asking you, are you a dog? No, I'm not. Who are you? Well, they start to go through their story about who they are. That's who you are, and who will you become? When? Tomorrow. Who will you become tomorrow? Who will you be next week? Who will you be next year? Are you going to be the same person today? Or are you going to be better and improved? We said to give ourselves the opportunity to shift perspective that serves us more and humanity. Fantastic. To give us perspective, to shift us, right, to serve us more and humanity. That's important. And so here's what we're going to do. The last couple of weeks with Eric and I having so much fun, and then having our guests with Judy and Penny and other guests, sometimes we get a little long-winded. The conversation is rich. Right? And actually, I'll tell you, because I say it all the time, continue the conversation after the show. We always continue the conversation. And it's not just about, and actually it's very seldom about how was the show. It was a great show. It was a good show. Typically, we don't even talk much about that. What we do is we continue a conversation and, hey, I wanted to talk with you about this. I wanted to share this with you, or there's some people I want to connect you with. It's always about community growth, personal growth. professional growth, the growth and development of, thank you, Lydia, humanity. That's what we typically do. Today, as we are drawn to a close, I am going to ask that we use these last 5 minutes, because I'm going to get off air. Use the last 5 minutes for reflection. Because typically you all stay with us until, an hour up, maybe even longer. If you had 5 minutes to yourself, what will you do with it? Will you give it to other people? Right? Family, friends, neighbors? Will you give your time that's yours to other people? Would you give it to your work or your company or business? I got to place these emails, send these calls, right? I can work on this spreadsheet. I need to give my time for me to other people. Or would you take 5 for you? That's what I'm going to ask you to do as we close out today. For the next 5 minutes, take time for you. Prayer, meditation, a quick walk, some calisthenics, do some exercises, or simply be silent. Take 5 minutes. I would like to thank you again for joining us this beautiful Saturday on Diversity Conversations. If you would, please continue to share the good things that are happening in your communities, the good things that are happening in your life. We want to have you join us every Saturday, if you can, to share more about what you want, what you need, and how any of us might be able to help. Again, thank you for joining us this Saturday on Diversity Conversations. See you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.